What's up, guys? This is Applied Knowledge. Thank you for joining me in another behind the scenes of audio. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more of these videos and other things, exclusive content, and also free beats and music. Also, please visit my website at www.appliedknowledgeproduction.com. If you're an artist, there are plenty of beats in my catalog for you to look at and to be able to purchase. And I also have a section where you can download 5 free beats uh, just for you to record on and put out for free. So please take advantage of that. But I wanted to dive in today. Actually, first, let me say thank you to all that are watching this video right now. I started behind the scenes of audio a little while ago, but I learned that it kind of defeated the purpose because I was getting on my webcam and I was showing me talking about certain things like compression, EQ, uh, multi-band compression, and like tips and techniques and all that different stuff. But I never actually had a screen capturing software to be able to show you how these things work and the steps that I take to be able to execute the mixes that I do. So now I have that software and I'm utilizing it as we speak. Uh, and right now I'm going to be showing you how to use a compressor in FL Studio. There is uh, two different types of compressors that I know of. Well, two different types of ways of compression. That's downward compression and there's upward compression. Downward compression is uh, putting a compressor on a sound source and compressing it so that it makes the signal softer or quieter. Upward compression is just the opposite, meaning that you're using a compressor but to bring the softer passages up louder, if that makes sense. So downward compression, that is like a tongue twister. So downward compression is uh, louder things softer, upward compression, softer things louder, just plain and simple. So right now I'm gonna show you guys just some really basic things about compression, what each parameter means, and different things like that. So I just came in here, I already did like a preloaded session, just put a couple kicks and snares in there. So here we have a snare pattern. All right, so we just got that basic thing. So if I go to the mixer here, um, you can see in my mixer window, I have a kick in one channel and I have the snare in the other. So in FL Studio, they give you this Fruity compressor here, and then they also give you the Fruity limiter, which also has a built-in compressor inside of it, along with the limiter, and we have a Fruity multi-band compressor. But I will save the Fruity multi-band compressor for another day. I also myself had downloaded some other compressors myself, just experimenting, trying to get um, a little overview of how each compressor sounds different. Because believe it or not, every time you upload a compressor on the same sound source, it does sound a little bit different. Uh, I haven't noticed any difference between the Fruity compressor and the Fruity limiter, and that's maybe because they're both made by ImageLine themselves, but I did notice a huge difference when I loaded up this one that I downloaded, the Audiocation compressor. And it is just, for some reason, it like amplifies the signal um, even when the gain is already at zero. Like there's zero gain, you're not pushing any gain to it, you're not amplifying it at all. It just amplifies itself even when you turn the gain knob all the way down. So that's a difference right there. And you'll get those sorts of differences depending on what kind of compressor you use by different manufacturers like UAD or I can't even think of none like a Reaper plugin or Waves Audio or all the other plugin manufacturers out there. So you'll definitely hear some differences. But getting past that, I'm just gonna use Image Lines or Fruity Loops compressor, and I have this loaded up on the snare. So right now what we're going to do is go back and we're gonna just mute this kick here, and then we're just gonna concentrate on this snare. So on each compressor, you should have all of these parameters. Now some will give you more, some may give you less, but for the most part, you're 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, you're gonna have a ratio, you're gonna have a threshold knob, you're gonna have an attack knob, and you're gonna have a release knob, and you might have like a makeup game knob. Now I have seen compressors where they don't actually say attack and release, or it won't say attack, but you'll get the release. It'll just be like a knob. I can't even remember what it says, but I know for sure it's in Pro Tools. It's a Pro Tools plugin. I just can't remember which one it is. So I'm just gonna walk through and try to explain to you in my knowledge, and try to really dumb it down for you guys. Not talking about anybody, but this shit can be very complicated. So starting with ratio. Now, when you set a threshold, the threshold means, so we're just going to plug in 19. When you set a threshold, you're saying that when you come back over here, you're saying in the snare channel that once the level passes -19, you want it to then begin to compress that signal. Ratio says, okay, I will compress this signal once I go above -19. The more ratio you give it, the harder it's going to compress it. Plain and simple. The more ratio you give it, the harder it's going to compress. Now, if you didn't get that, boom. This is what engineers call a brick wall limiter. That means that this, because we're just going to say it's infinite. The ratio is infinite. Because you've set it to that, it will not exceed that -19 level, because you have hit an infinite amount. You want it to be super crushed. You don't even want it to pass that amount, because you're so certain that if it does, for some reason, it may sound like shit, or whatever the reason you're doing it. But that is what ratio and threshold mean together with one another. Now, and just to show you guys, so let's see. So setting it back, everything to 0. So as you can see, it's almost right at 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it back to 19. Okay. Sitting back at 19. Now you can see that nothing is happening, that it's still around 8, -8 dB. That's because 1-to-1 means that you haven't enabled it yet. So when you exceed that 1.0 threshold, 1.0 ratio, then it will begin to start compressing the signal. So let's set it to 1.5. You see it dropped a little bit. Not much, but it dropped. So let's set it to 2.0. Up. See, it's starting to drop some more. Now let's set it to 3.0. Whoops, that's way too far. See, it just continues to go down. So the more ratio you give it, the more it's going to compress that signal. So, and just because I made that mistake, let's see how it looks when you hit that 30, that infinite ratio. Well, actually, this compressor did go past the -19 for whatever reason, but that could be because of the attack and the release settings. Okay, so moving on. Okay, moving on to the attack. So, attack, in my mind, you're gonna hear it differently in a book if you choose to read it. I'm just gonna say it like this. The attack, the more attack you give something, so first of all, this means that it's a slow attack. The higher the number, it means it's slower. Smaller the number, it means it's faster. So 0, that's super fast. So basically what that's saying is that the compressor is reacting immediately as soon as that threshold, as soon as that exceeds that threshold, it's happening immediately. There are no transients getting through. But the moment that you start to bring that attack up, you are allowing more transients to come through. So for instance, let's play the sound. So we're going to reset it back to 15, and we're going to set our threshold to 4.0. All right. So right now it's set at 15. Now let's see what happens when you drop it all the way fast. You see how I got a little softer? Because you just said that, okay, compressor, I want you to act immediately. I don't want any transients to come through. I want it to sound very round. That's what I'm thinking of. When I take all the attack out, it's gonna sound more rounded. But when I add attack, look at that. Comes right back. Now you got a little more bite. Yeah. Awesome. So attack, if you make it all the way fast, in my mind, it's gonna sound a little more rounder. But when you add more attack, you're gonna bring that sharpness back. You're gonna give it more, you're gonna allow more transients to come through. And like more, I'm gonna call it smack. You're gonna get more smack or more punch if you're using the kick. And I'll do it on the kick as well. So let's do it on the kick right now. Alright, let's load up another compressor here. We're gonna set this to 3.0. And we're gonna mute the snare so it's not interfering. And we're gonna set this to, say, 15. So let's play the kick. And first we're gonna take the compressor off. All right. See, it sounds a little more beefy. You see it already just adding that ratio to back to 3.0. It got a little more rounder. Now let's take the attack all the way fast. You see how I got quieter? It sounds a little more rounder. But let's add in that attack. More punch, right? Yeah. Okay. So, moving on. Now we are at release. So just another brief overview again. Ratio and threshold. These all go hand in hand, but ratio and threshold will go together. So threshold, if you whatever level you set it at, you're saying that I want the compressor to begin compressing once it reaches whatever level you set this threshold to. Ratio is saying that, okay, this is saying how hard do you want it to compress. Okay. Attack means either you're not gonna allow any transients to come through, or you're gonna allow some to medium transients to come through. So really it's just a matter of playing with it and knowing what you're looking to get. Release is almost just like almost like the attack, but not so much quite. Uh, if that makes sense. So release, it's saying that, okay, when do you want the compressor to let up? So you got all your levels set. I'm gonna set these back to kind of where I'm having it. So right there, we'll set that to 12. Oh, whoops, wrong one. All right, actually we'll set that back to 15. So right now the release is a little bit, and actually this is what I'm gonna do because I want you guys to see it, and the fruity limiter on here will allow you to actually see that. So we're gonna give it the same settings. So ratio 4:1. The attack was 15. And we'll just be a little more precise here. Boop. All right, 15. That's good enough. And the release was like 290, but we'll just leave it like that. And then the threshold was 19. We'll turn that off, bring this back up, and we'll set that to 19. All right. So right now we can actually slow this down, and that way you can see everything that's happening. So all those little transients right there, that's all the hits, obviously. And if you can see this little curve line here, that's actually the release setting. So watch what happens when I bring it. Actually, let's make it longer. Now you can actually see it a little bit better. That curved line, that's the release setting. So that's saying how long do you want this compressor to last. Like, so right now it's set at 800. So that's pretty long. But again, it depends on what is it that you're looking for. So if I set it all the way, you're saying that, all right, I want this compression to hold for as long as it can hold. And it will keep that same sound that you have when you first compress, because that release setting is so long. Now when you drop it all the way, boom, it's almost like the attack. If you set the attack all the way slow, it's like you're getting all those transients through. And so it's almost acting like the attack. And guys, please ask questions. If none of this makes sense, I will try to make it more plain and simple to you guys, because believe me, compression, that's in my mind, it's the hardest thing to explain and to execute. So it took me, I've been mixing 7 years now, and it's honestly taken me up until, well, it's 2018 now, like until last year to really start to get a grasp of how it works. So yes, it takes a long time. For some people it might take, you know, just a year or just a few months, but for me, I like to learn things. I like to go in depth. I like to really figure it out. Okay, why is this working like this? How does this coincide with this and that? So sometimes I get pretty technical, which you don't have to do. Some people, you can just click a button and go about your business. Then that's completely okay. So yep, we got the release setting set all the way fast, and as you can see, all those transients are coming through. So once the compressor hits, it exceeded that threshold, and then it lets up, and then it resets really fast. But when you set it all the way slow, you know, you're allowing that compressor to hold for a while. And it's taking, you're saying that okay, 2,000 milliseconds, and most of these are measured in milliseconds. Yep. So that 2,000 milliseconds is like, okay, that's how long I want it to hold. I still want it to hold that same sound. And that's really basically all you're doing is like, okay, if you want that soft sound, like when it hits and you drop the, or you bring up you drop the release. Oh my goodness, I'm confused myself. You drop the attack knob all the way fast in that round sound, but you boost the release. You're gonna hold that same sound until that compressor releases, which in this case, if it's 4,000 milliseconds, then it probably won't release. So I hope that all made sense. I know that was a mouthful. Please go back and watch this video again. I will again give you a brief overview of what each parameter means. And also, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this video. Share it with your friends. If you feel like there was something that I missed, please drop comments. Please ask questions. Shoot me an email. I will leave everything for you in the description. Thank you for watching. I am Applied Knowledge. I am not closing this video yet until I explain this one more time. So, ratio and threshold kind of go hand in hand. Threshold means whatever level you set it at, once it exceeds that level, it's going to begin to compress. The ratio is saying how hard do you want that signal to be compressed. Attack is saying if I set it all the way fast, I'm not allowing any transients to get through, which is probably going to make it sound a little more rounder or softer. While if you boost it, and you set it all the way slow, you're allowing all those transients to come through, and it's going to sound a little more sharper or punchier. Release kind of goes hand in hand with the attack, saying if you drop it all the way low, then the compressor is going to do its thing and it's going to jump back really fast, versus setting a very slow release, which means that once it does compress and acts or does whatever it does at whatever level that you set it at and whatever attack you set it at, it's going to hold that compression for as long as whatever level you set this at. So the shorter, the longer you do it, the longer it's going to hold. The shorter you do it, it's going to reset pretty much very fast. So, yep, the faster you set it, the faster it'll reset. The longer you set it, the longer it's going to take to reset. And I didn't go over type, which was knee. I will show you in the Fruity Limiter since you're able to see it. Knee is almost kind of the same thing. You see that little line right there moving, so it almost acts as if it was a ratio. That's saying like boom, like it's almost acting like a limiter. So it's like, all right, hard compression, I just want everything cut. I want it to act and I want it to hit hard, and I just want, like I said, I want everything to be cut and peaks to be trimmed off immediately, versus having a very soft knee, which is like, all right, you're gonna allow everything to come through. I'm not gonna say that I don't recommend doing that, because I don't know what kind of project that you're working on or whatever the goal is. I've never used anything like this. Either it's like a little bit, I'd say about around here, or it's all the way. And I usually use all the way if I'm working on like a snare, such as like we were doing in this session. So yeah, also during the mastering stage, but that'll be more videos to come. So again, thank you guys for joining me. I am Applied Knowledge. I really appreciate uh, everyone joining and watching, and hopefully this helped you. Um, Again, like I said, just please feel free to ask questions. This has been my first video in a while, so I was talking kind of fast because one, I'm nervous. uh, yeah, so yeah, I hope this helped. Please feel free to email me. Follow me on all my social media. I will leave all that in the description as well. So thank you guys. Happy New Year to you all. I hope you have a blessed Monday, and please stay safe and stay warm if you're in the Midwest.